Imagine this. You wake up one morning in 1962, the world seems normal. Coffee brews, kids walk to school, radios hum with the latest news. But overhead, hidden from plain sight, massive machines of destruction move silently, poised to annihilate entire cities. In Moscow, Washington, and Havana, decisions hang on a knife's edge. All it would take is one wrong move, one misunderstood signal, and the world as we know it would cease to exist in a matter of hours. This isn't the plot of some dystopian sci-fi film. This was reality during the Cuban Missile Crisis, one of the many moments when the world teetered on the brink of a nuclear World War III. But here's the chilling part. This crisis, like so many others, wasn't an isolated incident. It was a direct consequence of World War II, a war that may have ended in 1945, but whose battles never truly stopped. What if I told you that World War II was just the opening act in a drama of global power struggles that could have led to humanity's ultimate destruction? That the Cold War, far from being a simple ideological standoff, was fueled by the ghosts of Hitler's ambitions, Stalin's paranoia, and the secrets of Nazi scientists? Let's dive into this terrifying and fascinating story. By the end, you'll be asking yourself not just how close we came to nuclear Armageddon, but how we ever managed to avoid it at all. World War II ended with celebrations in the streets, but the war's legacy was far darker. The world was split into two camps, the United States and the Soviet Union. These two superpowers, supposed allies during the war, suddenly became mortal enemies. Why? It all began in the closing days of World War II. As Allied forces swept through Europe, both the US and the USSR raced to claim the spoils, territory, influence, and, most alarmingly, Nazi technology. The Americans captured Wernher von Braun and his team of rocket scientists, who would go on to design everything from the Saturn V moon rocket to intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. Meanwhile, the Soviets seized what they could, laying the groundwork for their own nuclear arsenal. By 1949, the USSR detonated its first atomic bomb, shattering America's monopoly on nuclear power. Suddenly, two ideologies armed with weapons of apocalyptic destruction were staring each other down, each convinced the other was planning global domination. The Cold War's first major flashpoint came in 1948 with the Berlin Blockade. Berlin, a city divided among the Allies, became the stage for a tense standoff. The Soviets cut off all land access to West Berlin, trying to force the Western Allies out. For months, the world held its breath as American and British planes flew food and supplies into the city in a massive airlift operation. But what most people don't know is just how close things came to a full-scale war. Behind the scenes, military planners were drawing up scenarios for using nuclear weapons if the Soviets decided to attack. General Curtis LeMay, known for his aggressive stance, was itching to drop a few bombs to make the point clear. Cooler heads prevailed, but the episode set the tone. This was no mere ideological dispute. This was a game of brinkmanship with stakes as high as human civilization itself. Fast forward to 1950. The Korean War breaks out, pitting communist North Korea, backed by China and the USSR, against South Korea, supported by the US and its allies. It was the first hot war of the Cold War, and once again, the specter of nuclear weapons loomed large. General Douglas MacArthur, leading US forces, famously pushed for the use of nuclear bombs to end the conflict quickly. His logic? Why not finish it here and now? Thankfully, President Harry Truman fired him before he could act on these plans, but the fact remains, the US seriously considered nuking not just North Korea, but also China. Think about that for a moment. One rash decision could have turned a regional conflict into a global inferno, and this was just the beginning. By 1962, the Cold War had reached its boiling point. The Soviets, humiliated by US nuclear weapons stationed in Turkey and frustrated by their lagging missile program, made a bold move. They secretly installed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from the US coastline. When American U-2 spy planes discovered the missiles, President John F. Kennedy faced a choice: do nothing and risk appearing weak, or act decisively and risk starting World War III. For 13 agonizing days, the world held its breath. US naval ships blockaded Cuba, while Soviet ships steamed toward the brink. In Washington and Moscow, generals and advisors argued for strikes, each side convinced the other would blink first. But here's the most terrifying detail. A Soviet submarine armed with a nuclear torpedo came within moments of launching its weapon after being harassed by US forces. Only the refusal of one officer, Vasily Arkhipov, prevented disaster. Think about that. The fate of humanity hinged on one man saying no. So, how does all this tie back to World War II? The simple answer is that the Cold War's entire framework was built on the unresolved tensions and rivalries of the previous war. The arms race. Without World War II, there would be no Manhattan Project, no Hiroshima, and no arms race that turned the world into a nuclear powder keg. Territorial divisions. The partitioning of Germany and the ideological divide in Europe were direct consequences of World War II. Scientific rivalry. The Cold War space race and missile programs were born from the Nazi war machine's remnants. Even the Cuban Missile Crisis had roots in World War II. Fidel Castro's revolution was inspired in part by anti-imperialist sentiments that grew during the war, while Khrushchev's aggressive policies were shaped by his experiences fighting Nazis on the Eastern Front. When you connect the dots, the picture becomes terrifyingly clear. World War II didn't just set the stage for the Cold War, it loaded the gun. Over and over, humanity came within moments of pulling the trigger. The Berlin Blockade, the Korean War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, each event brought us perilously close to nuclear annihilation. And let's not forget other moments, like the false alarms in 1983, when Soviet early warning systems mistook sunlight reflecting off clouds for incoming missiles. It's a miracle we're still here. Why should we care? Because the lessons of the Cold War are more relevant than ever. The world still bristles with nuclear weapons, and tensions between global powers haven't disappeared. They've just shifted. The question isn't just how close were we to World War III, it's how close are we now? If you found this journey through history as chilling and fascinating as I did, stick around. There's so much more to uncover about the fragile threads holding our world together. But that's it. Friends, and what do you think about it? Share your thoughts in the comments. I will be interested to read. Well, if you liked the video, don't forget to thank the author by liking and subscribing to the channel.